I'd like to share a little video with you about color. So let's start by just looking at this presentation here. All right, I also have a little video that should be below this video in my web page, which talks about chroma, color value, and contrast. And in this lecture, I'll explain all those, but you could still see the original video, which is quite interesting. This is Brian Bird talking about how the banana and the Pennzoil can are equal in chroma, color value, and contrast, which they are. Surprisingly, I found it dead on in Photoshop. And they don't, right now, they don't look like they're the same square color yellow, but they actually are. Okay. So let's talk about color, and let's, it's a really hard thing to understand because it's photons and it's waves and it's light splitting and it's light bouncing back to the eye. So let's start with light. And if all light were together, regular sunlight, and it was split up by a prism, then we would see the various waves and colors hidden within that white light. So that's kind of how light works, and that's why we have a rainbow. It's the water droplets in the sky that are splitting the light waves into the various waves of color. So, and that's kind of how we see color. In other words, light comes down, and instead of getting split by a prism or water, the atmosphere, instead what's happening is hitting a surface and then it's bouncing back to us. So we perceive color in many ways. It's kind of an illusion. In other words, it's what happens to bounce off of that object and back to our eyes. So if the object is white, then all light comes down, hits the object, and bounce all together back. Nothing is being absorbed by the color white. So it's kind of like that. If the object is red, it's going to absorb all of the waves except for red and bounce a red back to our eyes. So you can see how color is real, but at the same time it's kind of an optical illusion to some degree. Same with, all the colors, purple, blue, black. That's why black is so hot. If you ever move to LA, don't buy a black car because it's going to heat up immensely, because not only is it absorbing all of those light waves, it's thus absorbing a lot of heat. So avoid black cars in Arizona, etc. Maybe a black car is the right car for Michigan in the winter. I don't know. Okay, so all color is based on the eye's perception of light waves. What's also interesting about color is, we have, I have relatives who are colorblind, distant relatives, and that's concerning. I care for them and want to help them out as much as possible. But to some degree, all of us really are affected by this. We're all colorblind, and that's because even if we don't suffer from color blindness, which would allow us to see the image like this rather than this, we really don't see all colors. Nobody does, no human. So here is our perceived colors, this strange shape here. This square is all possible colors. So if that square is all possible colors, then we can present all colors using the LAB system. You don't have to memorize that. Know that this is a color system like RGB and CMYK. It's a computer system in this case. And RGB can't represent all colors, and neither can CMYK. So that means the computer monitor at this time cannot represent all colors that are visible to the human eye. Nor can any printed material. Printed is done through CMYK, printing color. That can't represent all colors visible to the human eye. RGB, that's how the monitor works. But neither of them even come close to representing all colors that are visible, period, even though they're not visible to our human eye. So really kind of interesting. So this is our area of perception of color right here. These are the colors like, night vision goggles. They're outside of this range, etc. But they're still colors and still visible. We just need special equipment to be able to see them. So here's the color range that we can print with in a printer, and here's what we could see on a monitor or a smartphone. So kind of interesting. When I was in college, I was always really frustrated with the terms additive and subtractive colors because no one ever really explained to me why they were additive and why they were subtractive. Let me explain that to you. So I'll put it this way. When it's all based on what is added or subtracted bouncing back to our eye. So is more light bouncing back to our eye or less light? In this case, well, it's like this. If I had 3 light sources, a blue light, a green light, and a red, RGB, and I shone them over each other and overlapped them, I would get pure white in the middle. This is additive color. You can see I'm adding to the amount of light that bounces back to the eye. That's why it's additive. I'm adding light. I'm adding reflection. I'm adding bounce back. Here, subtractive, and this is what was always driving me crazy because I would add more pigment to the palette and mix it up and I'd get a darker color. To me, that would be additive, but it wasn't. It was subtractive. And that was always frustrating because no one could explain to me why. Well, it's simple because by doing this, I'm making a darker color, which is bouncing less light back to the eye. More light is being absorbed by the darker color, black. So I hope that clears that up for you. We've studied light, we've studied color, and that's how we got CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And we can represent paintings and other color images this way. What we do is we break the image into dots, and then we separate those dots into sections of color. So if you could look really closely, you could see the dots of yellow, and here's the dots of magenta, the dots of cyan, and the dots of black. And if you overlap all of those, you'll get a representation. Now, in this case, it's a little harsh, and it's easy to see the dots. I did that on purpose just so you could see the image, but you get the general idea. This was a major breakthrough in printing when we could represent things correctly through color. So I guess it goes on to this all, of course, applies to the color wheel. And why we have the color wheel today is because all these colors are really related. Obviously, you can see that, how they're related, because how they slowly merge into one another as we go around this wheel. Okay, here's my friend Brian Bird, and I was making a movie of him, back when I was in college, years and years ago, and he was just goofing off and talking about his car. His car went through it leaked all kinds of oil and power steering fluid and everything. And here he's talking about he got one item for himself and one item for the car. The car will eat the Pennzoil, he'll eat the banana. But they were equal in chroma, color value, and contrast. So let's talk about those 3 things: chroma, color value, and contrast. Chroma, that's the saturation or intensity, how pure this color is. Okay, so intense colors have very good chroma, but chroma can also be weak, it just goes down. Okay, value, that's also referred to as color value. It's the lightness or darkness of a color. So shades tinted with grays. So that's our value. Now, really interesting here, if we were to take this image, it's fascinating to me that the sun and the sky are equal in value. Now, right now, we can't see it because blue, cold colors go to the back, warm colors come forward. They do that because of wavelengths. Warm colors are longer, therefore they come forward. Colder colors, like blues and greens, go back because they're shorter. But let's look at this in grayscale, and you can see it's really equal in chroma or in color value. So amazing. And we can do a lot with this as a tool, you know. Here we have many values, same color, all these kinds of cold grays, many colors, same value. Interesting, you know. So if we took this to grayscale, this and this and this would be basically equal. Same with the dress. Very fascinating. Yeah, there we go. So you can see these are excellent tools for a designer or artist to master. Let's talk about this last top three, contrast. So contrast is the degree of difference between the parts. And in this case, well, let's think of parts as colors. So how different is the black from the red from the white? Well, the most contrast you can ever have is white on black or black on white. So that becomes, in this case, a very powerful focal point. This work is a poster done by Modern Dog. I really like it. Okay, so here, you know, I'm changing the colors every time just to see how things either come forward or go back depending on their color and their contrast. And I've done the same with this advertisement. And, well, these are just other examples of what you can do with contrast. One other thing, I already mentioned this, but there's also something called color temperature. And it's kind of a psychological suggestion. In other words, we see blues and greens, or cooler colors, and oranges and reds as warmer. Local color is the color that you expect object to be in a white light or pure sunlight. Here's an artist that used that technique rather well. And we also have perpetual color that can change significantly over time in changing light. It varies from local color. Monet and all his impressionist work, he really studied this, and he looked at how the same object would look different, like a different color, depending on the time of day and the type of sunlight available. So he did, studies and noticing how this building changed from warms to colds, depending on how it was cast in the day, etc. Really interesting. And then lastly, an idea is symbolic color. And today, designers really have pushed this to the limit, so much so that colors are very often associated with brands and logos. Raymond Loewy knew this very well. He did a lot of strong use of colors. Oh, let's see. Well, okay. And today, this is a whole nother story, but it probably looks like a bunch of Best Buy employees. It wasn't. It was improv everywhere, tricking a whole bunch of everyday consumers and Best Buy employees into thinking that they were other Best Buy employees. A really funny improv everywhere episode. But you can see how color in many ways has been hijacked by our design world, and we've associated color with a store or a business, etc. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting. I hope you understand the difference between additive and subtractive colors now, and I hope you understand the difference in particular between chroma, color value, and contrast. All right, thank you.